Hello and welcome back to World of Tanks Bootcamp with Zethika. In this episode we are yet again in a tier 7 light tanks, but this time it's the T-71 and this was one of my first fights in it. I recently unlocked it and I've got to say I really love the whole autoloader aspect. It can really ambush some poor people, as we're going to be seeing in this match actually. Now, if you're not one who really enjoys light tank matches, I do apologize that I'm uploading so many of them. However, recently, as I said in the 2 times ago, I think, recently I've had such a blast playing with the light tanks. They are just I thoroughly enjoy them. Now I've stopped here because one thing you really need to consider in a light tank, of course, is what your role is going to be. Now, I'm in a bottom tier, which is not at all unusual. Actually, I'm not really bottom tier since there are some tier 6s, but of course, there are also some tier 9s. And the tier 9s are very, very dangerous tanks, as we could all, well, imagine, right? For this puny little tier 7 light tank, we do not have a lot of chances against the tier 7s. However, or at least that was my thoughts at the time. Of course, remember this was one of my first plays in the T-71. I've since learned the error of my ways in that regard. But my thought at this point is, I've not spotted anyone here, meaning that I can still move around up here to this location here without anyone noticing me. Now, the enemies spawn right on this area. And I've noticed that my friends have moved roughly, the furthest ahead of my friends have moved roughly 3 squares or something like that. Now it is downhill here, but my hope is that because I've not been spotted yet, I can get up here and maybe ambush a few people here, and also, not to forget, I can spot a few tanks moving over here, giving these guys, my friends here, intel on what they can expect. So I'm going to be moving over here quickly, hopefully quickly enough. Of course, it's always a bit of a gamble if you're going to spot anything or not, but I did find one straggler, the E-75. Now, the E-75 is very, very dangerous, of course, for me. He can take over half of my health on average away. Also, I'm in a bit of a position where I can actually quite easily get artillery. So I need to be very mindful of where I move. But if I can get a couple of shots in on this E-75, it's going to be very nice. Now, he did fire there and I was showing myself to him, but the reason for that was that I figured it was rather unlikely for him to get into a position where he could actually his gun would take way too long to reload, and he did not have that time there. So I was counting on the, what should we say, the unlikeliness. Oh, and here's an IS-8. I do not want to get anything done with that guy. So, hoping that I'm not currently being targeted by the artillery, I decide I'm going to get the hell out of there. And this is one of the real strengths of the light tanks, right? One of the reasons I enjoy them so much. You can pop out over there and quite easily simply roll around the map and find another location where you can kill, or, well, not kill in this case, but get a bit of damage in and support the team as best you can. So, I'm going to be moving all the way around here, and that IS-8, since he's so aggressive, I'm figuring, and since we've not noticed any tanks around here, I'm figuring this area is actually quite safe, and most of the enemies are either in the middle of the map or on the other flank. So, because I expected that guy to fire there, I was the good guy light tank and did not move right in front of him. That's something you really also have to remember as the fastest tank around, right? Those guys are probably in sniper view and will probably not notice you. So, if they're aiming at a tank and you haven't seen them fire, don't drive in front of their guns and then blame it on them. Would you notice them? Probably not. But now we're going artillery hunting. Get a shot in there, hoping that I won't get killed tremendously by that IS-8 over there. And the only other tank we've seen there was the AMX 5100, which tells me that it's rather unlikely that most of the enemy tanks are over here. They're probably over in the other, on the other flank, rather. So, oftentimes you'll find that artillery are going to sit right up here. And, yes indeed, he's right there. Now, of course, he can one-shot me. However, because of the autoloader, and because he did not expect me to get here, I was relatively safe to simply sit there and take those shots. Now, the MX-5100 could have been aiming on me, in which case I would have been in a world of hurts. However, I was lucky and he was not. And, since he's going to be sitting there, allowing me shots onto him, I'll, without a doubt, support my IS-6 over there. Of course, as a light tank, you're not really supposed to be the one getting all the kills, right? You're supposed to be the one supporting, and now I need a bit of support, because this Striker of Panzer IV would no doubt kill me in a one-on-one fight unless I could get to circling him. But because of the slope and the terrain, I can simply go up, spot him, and move back whenever he's aiming at me. And because he's aiming at me, my friends over on the other side are free to simply take their shots at him with leisure. Yeah. Even if I had taken one shot there, it would still have been quite fine, because, of course, he cannot one-shot me with the Yak Tiger gun. Had he had the big gun, the derp gun on that tank, I would not have been so keen to go out and get that little bit extra damage. But remember, the little bit of extra damage is quite significant when you're in a tier 7 light tank and driving against tier 9s. Now, I want to kill the last of the artillery, because that's a good thing, that's a good use for a light tank, I find. Especially here late in the game, where we've probably won, but no need to really give them any chances. And the more experienced of you are probably quite aware what's going to be happening right around here. What I should have thought of, but I didn't, because I don't know, I should have, but I wasn't thinking straight, is that this artillery piece right here has probably spotted me back way there. Most likely, at least, because the distance between the two areas was not very high, and even though an artillery doesn't necessarily have high view range, I was at full speed and he most likely would have been able to spot me. However, I was not thinking about that, and so we're going to see what happened right here with him successfully predicting that I was going to be showing my fat ass right around here. Now, as you saw, I tried to get some lateral movement around here. However, he predicted it, and at that point, well, it wasn't necessarily going to work out, but what I probably should have done was try and turn around and get around the other side of him. But at this kind of distance, and since he was already prepared for me, it was a bit unlikely that he was going to miss and not be able to correctly predict where I was going to go. Sadly. So, I think we should go on and take a look in the post-game stats and talk about what we should be doing in this kind of game and what we should not be doing in this kind of game. Let's go on. And here we are. So as you can see, this was my first class mastery badge. As I said, this was one of my first game in it, and I only think I've got 8 so far, something. So I won't claim to be an expert in the T-71 because I'm obviously not. And I also want to stress that this being a first class mastery badge, even though I got 3,504 experience earned at a 2x victory, means that people are doing very well in this tank, and I can understand why, because it is really nice, right? The autoloader allows it to be such a little ambush tank. But we're getting ahead of ourselves there. Let's go on. I earned 44,347 credits gross, and as we can see here, I was by a very small margin, the highest earning experience tank in the game. I was also I was the 3rd highest damage dealing tank in the game, which is probably why I got so much experience, considering that I am a tier 7. and I was against tier 9s and a couple of tier 8s. And finally we can see that I spotted 6 tanks, although I will say that my initial plan with going around and spotting whatever moved up towards the eastern flank didn't really pan out so much in the spotting department as much as it did in the damage department. I took, what, 1/3 of that E75's health off and delayed him considerably, allowing my team to get into advantageous positions and simply wait for him and ambush him completely. Of course the IS-8 was trying to do the same thing to me, and actually thinking about it, he was very fast to get there. Very, very fast. But it's an IS-8, and I guess that's to be expected. Right, I got 1200 assistance damage, which must be... that's probably mostly the Waffle Tractor of Panzerfear in the end. And he had a bad time. I earned 31,928 credits net, meaning that this tank doesn't cost much to run this tank, which is very nice, of course. It's also using the APC-R ammo as its standard shells, meaning that they're very fast, and it makes it so much easier to lead the targets, I find. Of course it does, right? It's so much faster. That also means that its gold ammo is heat, and, well, there are some good and bad sides about that. Don't we all know that, right? But now let's think about what I did here. I went after that E75 at the beginning, allowing my team a very good position in the east. However, as soon as the IS-8 came there, I was out of that area. I was simply gone, because I was not going to be able to do anything to him. I might have been able to circle him, right? But one, that's unlikely in such a small, narrow passage. He would simply move up towards one side and I would be stuck to get hit by his giant tank. Also, I did not know how many tanks was going to be supporting him had I gone out. And thirdly, had I stayed there, I would most likely have been killed by either the artillery or a flanking AMX 5100. So what I did was simply get the fuck out of there as quickly as possible. Because what you want in a light tank is not to die early, right? You want to live and put your gun to use. It may be that you're 2 tiers lower, sometimes even 3 tiers lower than the maximum tier tank, but you're quite often compensated in that your tank's guns are a bit strong for their tier. This tank's gun is quite awesome. And with the autoloader, it can simply wreck tanks, equal tier tanks especially. And that artillery, as you saw, he did not have many seconds to respond to me being there. Of course, had he paid attention to the map, he would simply have predicted me coming there and at least tried to fire at me, right? Giving him a fighting chance and maybe putting me in an awkward position against that AMX 5100. Now, talking about that AMX 5100, I was in a bit of a pickle there. By moving up there and getting spotted, he was able to put shot after shot into me had I stayed there. However, because I was behind so much cover, I was quite certain that I was completely certain in that he was never going to be able to spot me by any means necessary. So, after I had moved into the cover, I waited for him to stop shooting first and foremost, because he could be still blind firing, and wait for me to disappear from his radar. And then I was able to simply move out, and he had no chance of knowing that I was there. This is also something that's, of course, important in all tanks, but especially important in a tank such as the T-71 in a tier 9 matchup that can die so quickly. Had that AMX 5100 been able to unload on me, he would, I think, most likely he would have been able to kill me in 2 shots, or at the very most 3 shots. And that's not a lot of seconds for me to get into cover against another autoloader, one of the big strengths of the autoloader. Of course, the autoloader is also a bit of an issue in that when you reload too early, you might be sitting there simply not being able to do anything, as I had a short period of time against the Waffle Tractor of Panzerfear, right? when I had spotted him and he was aiming away before he noticed that I was sitting there looking at him, I would have been able to shoot at him quicker. Of course, it didn't really become such an issue, and to be honest, it's not really so much an issue in the T-71 ever, because its major reload is still very, very fast, considering some of the longer reloads you can expect, for example, from the rocket tractor of E100, right? With its, I think it's 55 seconds reload? I can't actually remember. But that's definitely something I have to get used to, and considering that this is my... Is it? Yeah, it might actually be. I think this is my first high-tier autoloader tank. Is it really? I think I have another one, but I can't remember which. And maybe one of the Japanese ones? No, oh wait, I remember. It was the 5916, right? Yeah, I think... Actually, I'm really getting confused here. Quickly, let's check the tanks before I make a fool out of myself. Yes, the 5916 does have an autoloader, and I did use it because... Oh, look at this tank. It's also so sexy with its giant silencer-looking thing right there. Man. Oh well, very sexy tank. But this is also a sexy little tank, and it is very small. That's also a thing to remember that I did not necessarily use to its maximum effectiveness in this match, in that it is so very tiny, right? I didn't really get a chance to show it, of course. But if you can get... Well, let's talk about the last thing that I did, the thing I did wrong. What should I have done? I should have expected that he was going to sit and wait for me to move out. And quickly move. I should have slowed down and quickly moved out, checked that he was there, and get back. Or some... Well, if he had good reflexes, he would still have been able to kill me, but it was probably going to be a better outcome for me. Now, had he not been pre-aimed for me, what I would have been able to was simply move around his ass and sit there and shoot him all day long. As you probably all know all too well, that's what light tanks like to do. Too bad it didn't work out for me in this time. And with that, I think we should call it quits. And I hope you enjoyed my little T-71 replay. I've been enjoying playing it an awful lot lately. And it is such a small little bundle of joy, right? Now, I hope you enjoyed watching me play, and I hope I'll see you all back another day for more World of Tanks. And all of you, please have a very nice evening, and don't forget to vote, comment and subscribe. I say it every time, but it really does help a lot, even though it makes me sound like an ass. But have a very nice evening.